Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to get the best out of your Dawn system using three main views: the patient view, list views and the home page. So to start with, I'm going to go onto the patient button at the top, and this brings up the patient search screen. Now, to find a patient, I can search on any of these fields here. I'm going to search on part of the last name. This narrows the search down, and what I'm going to do is make it a bit tighter search by putting in the whole of the last name and a couple of letters of the first name, and pick my patient from the list. This is the patient view. So at the top we have a banner that's showing patient details such as the last name, first name, the sex, date of birth, identification number, and in my case I'm also showing the general practitioner details. The rest of the screen is divided up into four main quadrants. The top quadrant is about the treatment details, the bottom left quadrant is notes details, the top right the dosing details, and the bottom right the history. So in the treatment details we've got the percentage time in range and the VGR, which are measures of stability. These are optional whether you want to show them. I can define a risk class for the patient. So this patient is low risk from the warfarin, or I could specify that it's a high risk patient. And what this does is it alerts me because it's now in red and it draws my eyes up there, but I can also manage my different list views by risk classes. I can specify what clinic they have or they belong to. This could be a physical clinic of where I want them to turn up, or it could be dividing up postal clinics where you don't actually see your patients but you book them in on a particular day to have a blood test. The phone number, and if I've got a mobile phone I can display either of those on the top screen, and directly below that is the age, and the age on this is showing in red because it's gone past a certain limit, at which point I want alerting about the age. The next is another measure of stability, which is the percentage time in range, and if I hover on the green band it shows that they spent 81% of time in range in the last 6 months, and if I hover on the red, 19% above range. And if there was any time below range, this would show in blue at this left hand side. I've then got the diagnosis, what target range I'm trying to achieve, the start date, whether they're long term or short term, and what sort of tablets they've been given. And if they had any risks, I could have defined those and they would show in red here. Below that in the notes, we have the patient notes, which is something I want to read every time. Notes that are important. And below that, we have what we call quick notes, which can record a quick call with the patient or other information that doesn't relate to a particular INR and visit. So if we take a look at the dosing section, what you can see is there's some colour coding going on. And the idea is, if it's coloured green, it means it's fine, nothing to worry about. As long as I agree with everything Dawn suggested, I can go ahead. If it's amber, I need to take a little bit more care and look into things. And if it's red, I definitely need to think about what I'm doing more and perhaps make a different decision. Now then, I might want to add some notes against this visit. So what I can do is I can use a coded comment and just save this, and it will pre-fill the notes field with a comment that I've previously defined, such as the patient answers as follows to the questions: any bleeding or bruising, and so forth, with questions you normally ask when they come to clinic. If I agree with the Dawn suggested dose and next test date, I can just click on accept dose. and this is indicating that I've got certain messages triggering behind the scenes, and we'll cover that in another training video. I can see the history section at the bottom, and if I scroll down you can see reiteration of the colouring, percentage timing range between this visit and the last visit, and so forth. And I can see that on this visit it went slightly above range, so it's given me a visual picture of how stable this patient is throughout their history. So how do I find other patients who are still waiting to have the dose finished off? Well, I could go up to the list views and I could search on the work list for incomplete visits on, say, any date. And from here I can choose a patient from the list and work through the patients. Now what I can see is that this one's showing in red, and this is indicating that there's something I need to take notice of. Is there an easier way to do this? Well, if I click on the home page, I can see that I've got a work list panel and that it's got a number of tallies on it, such as incomplete visits. If I click on this, I don't need to go and look the patient up. I can purely click on the patient in the list and deal with them from there. And when I've finished dosing this patient, they'll then drop off the list and they'll drop off the tally. Your work list might look slightly different from mine depending on what you want defining in these lists. We can look at things like patients who've missed the test, patients with a new treatment plan who need to be activated, patients with no next test date. But what you can see is that this panel is showing in red, which it means there's something I need to deal with. I can look at another panel, which is the database panel, and it's alerting me because it's a long time since the last backup, and I would expect the last backup to be either yesterday or today. So any green panels means that things are going along as they should do. Any red panels means that I need to do something about it. So other areas of the system that you might want to have a look at are things like who you're logged in as. I'm logged in as Dawn. I might want to change my password, change my personal settings, or log out. I can go to the management menu where I would add my default settings and that sort of thing. And at any point when you're in Dawn, you can go to the eye icon, you can click on help, and that will open the help file. I can go back to my main system. There are two more buttons on here, a zoom in and a zoom out. If I zoom in, it makes the text and everything larger, but I fit less on my screen, and I can zoom out again, so you can change it till it's comfortable for yourselves.